Hi everybody, Tekking101 here to do the first ever Tekking101 follow-up video to a chapter review ever. So yeah, that's certainly, and this chapter certainly called for it, most definitely. I knew pretty much just when I went to go review the chapter that this was a big one, and I would not be able to simply, just my first thoughts on it were not going to be enough to properly articulate exactly what was going on, what this could mean, because as soon as I read the chapter and I realized, and by the way, in case you haven't, either go read the chapter or go watch my review on it if you haven't done that as kind of a prerequisite for this video, but basically after reading it and I saw the whole thing with, you know, like Zangetsu is really Ichigo's Quincy powers and he's Juha Bach from 1,000 years ago, I knew right there that this was going to be a thing where people had to go back to, like, way back at the beginning of the series, or in, like, different parts in the series, and kind of look at other scenes that happened that involve Zangetsu, that involve Hollow Ichigo, and just involve all this stuff, and I wouldn't be able to, and I knew I was overlooking stuff. I knew when I just made the video I was going to be overlooking stuff, so I did the best I could, and I just decided to do the whole kind of, like, mindfuck theme of the chapter, where, you know, nothing made any sense. Like, I used the One Piece theme as my theme music, which I'm probably not going to keep it as that, so in case you were expecting that, sorry. I had Vanillite, I called him Gibble, and then I had freaking Smart Tekking show up at the end. So, and then I pass out, which that's probably going to lead into the next video too. But the thing was, I offered the follow-up video, and I asked you guys to post your comments on the channel, on the video, which I received over 567 comments on this video alone, and this exploded. This was like 6,000 views, and it's only 6,000 views, 337 likes in, what was that, like 4 days since I uploaded the video, so thank you for that, by the way. So, yeah, I'm just going to go through down the list here, just some that pop out, a few that were upvoted the most, because you guys have some really good ideas here, what's going on and everything. I certainly could not just come up with the ideas, because when I do a chapter review, one of the main drawbacks is that I read the chapter, and then usually I'm under some kind of time restraint. Usually I have to go to work, or I have to do something else, so it's basically just read the chapter, read it again to make sure I didn't miss anything too obvious, go and review it, and that's it. I really don't have time to sit down and think about, you know, what this means, go back and analyze the entire thing. So I'm going to bring up 3 things that I heard the most. This is stuff that I've received mail over, stuff that, you know, people have sent me messages on Facebook and everything. Well, you know, it makes sense if you look at it from this way. So here are 3 right here. And the first one, I got so much mail over this. So many people left me comments. Some were jokingly, some were actually serious. Some actually sent me the link to the friggin' video. And that is this little scene right here from the Bleach anime. I think it was episode 124, 125, whatever. Let's go to the clip. You have no idea how many people that's immediately what they jump to, and they're like, how could you not mention that? It makes so much sense now. Oh, I guess Hollow Ichigo was telling the truth, right? Alright, here's what I have to say about that. And you're probably going to hate me, because this makes a lot of sense, but I don't really think that's what Hollow Ichigo was referring to in that one scene. I don't. I think in that point, you're going to get more mad at me for thinking that. I guess everyone wants to think that Kubo planned this out, that it makes it look like Kubo's some kind of genius where he planned this out like years and years in advance. And I'm just not on that side of the camp. I think way back at this point in the series, when the Ichigo and Hollow battle went on, I don't think he was planning this whole thing in advance. That's what I meant by one thing he was retconning. And a lot of people got mad at me by I was using the term retcon, which retcon essentially just means that originally when a plot point was introduced and it was not meant to be something until later on when they go back and say, oh, well, now it means to be something, when originally it wasn't when he originally wrote it. That's basically like saying, you know, he didn't plan on Zangetsu being his Quincy powers when he first drew Zangetsu way back in, like, chapter whatever, when he first met Zangetsu. He didn't change that until much later, although it does make sense. Maybe he could have. Maybe back at the beginning of Bleach he had some basic idea where he wanted to go to the series, but whatever. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's like, maybe it's like when he was designing the Quincy arc, the 1,000-year Holy War arc, he designed Juha Box specifically like that, so it would correspond to Zangetsu's appearance. But that's not the issue. The issue is what Hollow Ichigo said. He's like, "I am Zangetsu." I think that only referred to at the time when he referred to Zangetsu as we know him as Ichigo's Shinigami powers, or like they're both say the same power. And the way he did it was saying that when Zangetsu was in control of Ichigo's power, that's the form he took. And when Hollow Ichigo was in control of his power, that's the form that he took. It wasn't really anything, he didn't really go into Quincy's or anything. I think it just referred, more than just what he was saying, I think what he was just saying that I am just as much of your power as he was. So I think that's what he meant there. I don't think Hollow Ichigo meant in that line that, you know, I am really your Shinigami powers. I don't think he meant that. And I know I'm probably rambling there, and you probably didn't understand a thing I just said about that, but basically, I don't think he was referring that he was the Zanpakuto powers in that scene. Another thing is, exactly, some people were saying that Zangetsu might not even be Ichigo's Shinigami powers, or that might be Hollow Ichigo's real name, is Zangetsu, and, you know, therefore that. But the way I'm thinking of is like, okay, where did the word Zangetsu come from? Okay, if the young Juha Box appearance in Ichigo's soul, if that is his, I mean, I guess he wouldn't have a name Zangetsu if he was simply Juha Box younger visage. I guess we could just call him Juha Box. I don't think he would be called Zangetsu. So yeah, maybe Hollow Ichigo's real name is Zangetsu, and that is his real power, but I just don't think, that might be true, but I don't think that's what he was referring to back then. I think he was referring to just something completely different back then, and it just makes more sense now. That makes sense. So moving on, because that was a mind screw. Next up is Ichigo's Getsuga Tensho attack, which basically the thing was like, oh, Ichigo's original Getsuga Tensho is blue, and the Quincy's Heilig Pifayo, or Holy Arrows, or most of the Quincy's attacks are blue. Therefore, that would be kind of a rough reference to Ichigo's Ichigo's Quincy powers. I think the best way for me to describe this is that Zangetsu, the young Juha Box, essentially, when he first met Ichigo, he lied about his name, saying that he was Zangetsu and that I'm your Shinigami powers, and he might have been kind of either taking his Shinigami powers from the Hollow Self and just kind of passing them off as his own and kind of stealing from him. It's like, oh yeah, here's your Shinigami powers. Or he's giving Ichigo pseudo Shinigami powers that are actually just disguised Quincy powers, and they're kind of shining through with the like the Getsuga Tensho being blue and everything. I think I would go more with the stealing the Shinigami powers to begin with, because I just don't understand the whole concept of disguising Quincy powers as Shinigami powers, disguising them in the sense where you have a Shikai, you have a Bankai, which are just definite Shinigami abilities. Like, Quincy's have shown to have different stages to their power. We'll get into that in a second. That's the third thing involving the final Getsuga. But basically, Quincy's just have, you know, regular form, and then the Volt Standing, or the Let's Steal, or something like that. They don't really have any other forms, you know. Shikai and Bankai, those are like definitive traits of what it means to have a Zanpakuto and what it means to be a Shinigami. So I think in that situation, the young Juha Box, you know, maybe took the powers from the real Zangetsu, which could be Hollow Ichigo, it probably is a Hollow Ichigo, and then gave them the Ichigo and passed them off as, like, those were my powers that I'm giving you, and those are actually Ichigo's Shinigami powers, but they're not as toned, or they're not as good as they would be if he just tapped into his powers directly. It was kind of just like, you know, he's getting them through a third-party source, when if he was just tapping into them directly, he would have more power. I think that's the whole deal with Nimaya making the Asachi out of this, like, making a proper sword from his hollow powers. Ichigo won't have to rely on Zangetsu kind of taking the powers from Zangetsu, young Juha Box taking the powers from Zangetsu and then handing them to Ichigo. Ichigo can just tap directly into true Zangetsu. I think that's what I'm going to refer to him now, on true Zangetsu and then just false Zangetsu. I think that'd be an easier way to refer to that. So that's my theory on, and like why Ichigo's Getsuga's blue. You could just as easily say, why is his Bankai's Getsuga black? You can just as easily say that, so I don't really, that's what I'm going to go on referring to the Getsuga Tensho being blue in color. I think it's just a design. I don't really think, plus, I don't even know, have we ever seen Ichigo's Getsuga Tensho in the manga colored? I don't know if we have. I know we've seen his black Getsuga colored. I don't think we've ever seen his blue one colored, except in the anime, which sometimes the anime gets color schemes wrong, but whatever. Let's just leave it at that. I don't think it's anything Quincy related. I think it's just, false Zangetsu passing on true Zangetsu's power to Ichigo. Finally, the final Getsuga Tensho, which a lot of people were saying, like, okay, well, no other Shinigami has ever shown the ability to have something even similar to Final Getsuga. We've never seen, Bankai Stage 2. We've never seen, any Shinigami melding with their Zanpakuto. Therefore, this has to be a Quincy power related to Volt Standing. I agree on that, but at the same time, the way that the final Getsuga was built up actually makes a lot of sense. It's simply the Soul Reaper and the the Soul Reaper and the Zanpakuto becoming one, or melding to the point when they're together as one single being. That doesn't really... blow me out of the water in terms of a Quincy power. That just seems like a natural, and I think that's what Aizen even called it, was a natural evolution, like the ultimate evolution between Zanpakuto and Shinigami. So I'm not going to say it's impossible for a Shinigami to not achieve the power similar to the final Getsuga, but I know what you're looking at. Like, we've never seen anything like this before, and, it's like a one-shot attack that drains your Ryatsu and loses your power afterwards, which is a huge parallel to the Quincy Let's Steal, so I'll go with that. I'll go with the fact that he has final Getsuga, or maybe the fact that Shinigami could potentially gain the power, but Ichigo was able to achieve it so much easier. Like, he was the one person to achieve it because he has Quincy powers in him. No other Shinigami probably has any any Quincy power in them, because that's just not how that works. So maybe they would be able to achieve it, but because they don't have any Quincy power, they can't. They never got there before, and Ichigo was just the first person to ever unlock this great power of the final Getsuga. So those are the three things I heard about the most. Hollow Ichigo or true Zangetsu yelling out, like, I am Zangetsu, so that must be a foreshadowing to it. Blue Getsuga Tensho, which I think that's just, just how the attack was designed. And then Final Getsuga, which I do agree with, which is probably a homage to his Quincy powers. I'm not, okay, I want to say one thing. I don't think that Kubo just pulled this out of nowhere. I'm not saying, like, just when this arc started, he decided, oh, we're going to go and change everything. I think he did plan this, and my idea for how he did it was, I think, around maybe toward the tail end of the Fate Karakura, definitely when the Fullbringer arc started, definitely when the Lost Shinigami representative arc started, he had it in his head that he was going to do this. I think that's why, one of the reasons why when Ichigo's got his powers back, they were modified in a sense. Because if you look at the similarity between Juha Bach and Ichigo, another similarity I hear is that Juha Bach's sword is curved in such a way that it resembles Ichigo's new Shikai. So I think that when Ichigo got his powers back, I think Kubo designed his new Shikai like that for a reason. And also, I think, like, the whole reason he changed it for that exact reason was because think about this. Ichigo gets new powers just to have them immediately destroyed. He gets his new Shikai, new Bankai, and then less than 50 chapters later, Hashball breaks his fucking Bankai, and those new powers he got, out the window. I don't think it was I don't think Akubo was going like, I'm going to give Ichigo a new Shikai, new Bankai design, and then we're just going to run with that for the rest of the series. I think he gave it that just to kind of foreshadow later on stuff we're going to see in the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, and then lose them and then regain them so we can actually explain what everything's going on. I think that's what he did, but I do not really believe that way back in, like, Soul Society arc or Ronka arc, Kubo planned this ahead of time. I just don't think he did that. I don't think he started coming up with the idea to do this until tail end of the Fate Karakura, probably like around Deicide, and then started to actually take it into an action and begin to set stuff up during the Fullbringer arc. So that's what I think about that. Alright, so now I'm just going to go and read some of your guys' hypotheses involving this, because I got some really good ones. Okay, so let's do the two main comments that got upvoted here. This one is one I just referred to from King Swills involving, he asked Hollow Ichigo, where's old man Zangetsu? And he says, I am Zangetsu! So I already covered that. Okay, this one's from Verify Miyagfo, and I'm not like reading these beforehand. These are just like off the cuff. These is kind of like an answer video. Verify My Ageful. Just came across this review. I'm glad I'm going to comment against this. No one seems to think about this. Ichigo's Bankai current benefits condenses his Ryatsu to give him more speed. Now, when he has a basic Asachi Zanpakuto, it will already be condensed to this, giving him the same benefits as a Bankai. He will now get totally new abilities, and his Bankai will be a huge power-up. Fuck yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I said back when I said that he's just tapping into, like, pseudo-powers right now. When he gains the actual power that his Zanpakuto's supposed to have, I still think its name's Zangetsu and everything, and that's probably going to be Hollow Ichigo's real name, because that's another fan speculation thing, but I just don't think he was getting them from directly. Sorry to cover that, so that's pretty cool. Pretty cool idea. From Beta4535. Interesting hypothesis. I was thinking along the same lines as well in my hypothesis. I assume that Bach still has a link with all other Quincy Bach since he's able to recall those powers. Doing so, Bach probably got intel on how Ichigo's and how Shinigami Hollow powers worked from Bach. He's referring to false Zangetsu as Bach Getsu. Then he might have used that knowledge and tweaked the Quincy ability, possibly Scalavery, the slavery ability, that's another thing too, in order to capture Bankai. That could make sense, how he was like learning Shinigami abilities from the false Zangetsu that's inside Ichigo, and that's maybe how he developed powers to absorb the Bankai, which of course makes sense because you can't really, I think even Yamamoto alluded to this, like you can't steal something unless you actually know what you're doing. You know, he has like these medallions that are they're specifically designed to absorb a Shinigami's power, and yet Quincy somehow came up with this. They have to have some basis for this. They have to have some kind of understanding where it comes from. Sclavere, or the slavery ability, would make perfect sense. I think there was oh man, someone mentioned, there was a really good hypothesis that mentioned Sclavere, and it mentioned exactly why that ability exists. And it's intuitive to Ichigo. Maybe it is just the absorption of the Bankai, is like an advanced form of Sclavere. Yeah, there's something that I missed. Okay, holy crap, someone spammed this. Not spammed this, but YouTube thinks somebody spammed this because there is a lot of spam warnings here. Yeah, I'm skipping through all these. Sorry if you guys, I'm not saying you're a spammer. You might actually have really important ideas, but I don't want to go and sift through all these. Alright. From Bring It On Batman. Perhaps the whole point of the King and the Horse lecture, that calling the Zanpakuto's name doesn't make it your friend lecture, are all subtle hints that Shiro's power are subjugated to Juhai and can only appear when he's about to die, and thus it's allowed out of necessity. Okay, I get that. It's going back to the whole, you know, like pseudo Zangetsu, you know, taking true Zangetsu's power and kind of passing them off as himself. Alright, that makes sense. So far, it's not that too far out there. I really like you guys' hypothesis, because some of these were actually very interesting. Also, maybe the reason he lost his powers was the fact that Muget's form was his true Bankai, considering the Asachi's face and Mugetsu's bandage scarf. They look very similar, like Renji's okay, so in there you're saying that that his final Getsuga was actually his true Bankai. I don't see that. I don't really see that, just for the fact that if it was his true Bankai, why did he lose his powers immediately after using it? Because Bankai doesn't. That's not usually something a Bankai do. I mean, it might drain your powers, but it's usually not something that usually, you know, leaves you empty after you use one. Oh, that's another one too. This isn't really a power reference. This is just a symbolic reference, but it's how, hold on, I got it. I actually have it lying around here somewhere. Hold on. Yeah, here it is. It's because Ichigo's Bankai has this, and it's a swastika, and the Quincy's are Nazis because they're German. You get it? That makes sense. It does. The only thing I'm saying is that I don't think Kubo designed this to be a Nazi swastika. He designed it to be the kanji for, or the manji. I don't know. Japan has like 3 different kinds of alphabetical systems. But this is the symbol, I believe, simply meaning full in Japan, like full or complete or something like that. So I think that's what he meant when he first activated Bankai. I think that's what the symbol means. But yeah, I get it, because it's a swastika. I mean, like swastika can mean multiple things. It doesn't have to just be explicit to, you know, Nazism or, you know, World War II or the Nazi Party or anything like that. It's just a symbol that takes on different meanings depending on how it's shaped and depending on how it's drawn, or if it's inverted like this or if it's straight like that, or, you know, it can mean different things. But I get where you're going from, how the Quincy Quincy's are German. They have a German motive, and they're like Nazis essentially. So I can understand that. Okay, this is going back, Mr. Cypher 4. This is going back to when Ichigo first met Hollow Ichigo. This was way back when he fought against Kenpachi. Oh, Kenpachi! Another thing, another add-on I learned. Remember way back when he was fighting against Kenpachi and they were having that epic showdown where Zangetsu's standing behind Ichigo and he's just like, I'm at the limit of my power to stop your bleeding. Right there, at first when we saw this, it was just like, oh, I guess Zanpakutos have the power to stop bleeding or stop injuries, even though we've never seen any Zanpakuto ever do that, with the exception of, Unohana's, but that's expressly for healing. Zangetsu's not a healing type Zanpakuto, and Ichigo knows nothing about healing Kido, so that doesn't make any sense. But now, because Ichigo has Blued Vein, that makes more sense how pseudo Zangetsu was using some kind of form of maybe Blued Vein to stop Ichigo's bleeding when he was fighting against Kenpachi, because Kenpachi, man, he rammed him like through the freaking heart. Like, Ichigo was down. Like, so it doesn't make much sense how he was just able to stand back up just because he had a conversation with his Zanpakutos, so that makes more sense now. But going back to this, okay, Chapter 112, The Undead 2, Ichi says to, Hollow Ichigo says to Pseudo Zangetsu, he's strong, train him well, because one day that power will be mine. Okay, I remember this. And maybe that has some sort of clue as to who he is, or who... the first time we saw that, it was just like, oh, this is this evil entity that lives in Ichigo's soul that's going to overtake him someday. But in reality, it could be his true power. And the reason why I think Hollow Ichigo is just so pissed off or so crazy is just because he's an untamed Zanpakuto. He's an untamed sword. He doesn't have an Asasachi. And we saw that Nimai stated that all Zanpakuto ever, Ichigo was the first one that did not have an Asasachi forged from this. So it would make sense why, because he's not made in this fashion, that he's like unwildly, he can't be, it's hard to be subjugated and everything, so that and the fact he's actually literally mixed with a hollow would make sense why, would make sense in that case. I can't believe I'm having a conversation about Hollow Ichigo being Ichigo's true Zanpakuto. I know that's confirmed now, but I just never expected that in a million years I would actually ever make a video about, that sounds like, before this chapter, wasn't that like some kind of crazy fan spec? Like if someone came up to you on a Bleach forum or something and says like, I think Hollow Ichigo is Ichigo's true Zanpakuto, would you not freaking troll the crap out of that guy? Would you not like list 1,000 freaking reasons in bolded or very organized fashion why that statement is bullshit? I mean, that's like saying, like back in the day, that was like saying, I think that Tolkien stole stuff from J.K. Rowling when it came to Lord of the Rings. I mean, it doesn't make any damn sense. But yeah, okay. So, well, how long are we doing this? How long are we up to? We are up to 22 minutes. All right, I'm going to cover one more, and then I'll just leave it for the spec page below. Let's see. Let's get a good one. Well, this doesn't have anything to do with Ichigo, but let's read this because it's about Uryu. John Carter writes, we know that Ishida may work with Juha Bach, but what if he was working for him since the beginning of the anime? Remember when Ichigo told Ichigo about spirit threads, and that Shinigami have a red thread, which was thought it was that the plan that the red thread was for Quincy's. So when Ichigo was in the inner world for the first time and started to collapse, Zangetsu told him that his Shinigami power is one of the boxes. Ichigo pulled out the one with the red thread, so he might be activated the Quincy powers. I always thought that the red threads meant Shinigami powers, and that, what if the plan was that the red thread was for Quincy's? I don't see any reason why that ever would be changed, because wasn't Uryu's spirit threads blue? Like we even saw in that episode, like his threads were the same as everybody else. So, yeah, one more after that. That was about Ishida. That wasn't really about Ichigo, but yeah, spirit threads. I think that's just another reason, actually, more stating that Kubo did not plan this. Like, going back to that, I mean, maybe, I can't even find a good excuse for that. I think it's just back then, Kubo really did design Zangetsu for being real Zangetsu and being Ichigo's Shinigami powers. I don't think he was planning on him being a Quincy from the beginning. That's what I mean about retcon. So, anybody that's like, you're retconning, that's not a retcon, you don't know shit. I'm like, no, spirit threads, red thread, Shinigami powers, you can't really say that Kubo planned this from the beginning. It'd be cool if he did, I just don't see that happening. Mostly because you know, when most mangakas start a series, I'm pretty sure they're not thinking of what's going to happen, like, 300 chapters down the line. I think they're more concerned about making chapters now, because when a manga first starts off, you know, that's when it's very shaky. I mean, I think Kubo had I know he had a manga before this. It was called Zombie Powder, and I don't know how many chapters that lasted. Hold on, I will check. Zombie Powder. Good manga, Zombie Powder, actually. Read it. Some of it's actually, there's a character in there that looks very similar to Grimjow, and there's another one with huge tits, and she fights with a tripod, which I think is just badass for some reason. So, yeah, read Zombie Powder. That's not on my... How is that not on this website? My main manga website does not have Zombie Powder listed. Damn, that is... Yeah, Zombie Powder manga. Okay, here we go. It has 27 chapters, so yeah, definitely did not last that long. Good manga series, though, so I think they're more concerned about, you know, making it last. I don't think they're more concerned about stuff that's happening 300 chapters down the line, but then again, I'm not a mangaka, so I don't know. Okay, this is interesting. Dude, this is from Isa Ibn Salihin, probably butchered that terribly. His pick is of Uehara, so that's pretty cool, though. Dude, Tekking! Remember the fight of Ichigo against Byakuya at Sokyoko Hill? Remember how he said that Bankai can never be so small? Didn't you think it was odd that Ichigo's Bankai was this small, since all the other Bankai were seen as gigantic in either size or power? Not really. I didn't really see him as that odd. I think it was just Byakuya mentioning the fact that out of all the Bankais he's seen, and remember that, like, there's not a lot of Shinigami that can use Bankai. I mean, I'm sure they're in the records and everything, but I'm sure Byakuya is not, like, he's not like Mayuri. He's not a historian when it comes to, like, Bankai abilities. He's just a captain. So I'm sure that Byakuya has probably seen some of the other captains' Bankai. I'm not even sure if he's seen them all. But I mean, look at Yama's Bankai. Yama's Bankai didn't really summon anything huge, or it wasn't a massive effect. It was mostly just a flamey sword. So I'm pretty sure Byakuya just meant, out of all the Bankai he has saw, or he has seen, grammar naughty, that out of all of them, which is probably a very you know, small number, he did not see anything that small as Ichigo's was. And I think when you look at his powers back then anyway, you know, his power was based in speed. It wasn't in major offensive powers. It wasn't like summoning a giant like Komomora's, or it wasn't, you know, summoning some giant effect like Tozen. It was meant, it's a speed type Zanpakuto that, you know, that's the whole point of it. So of course his Shikai, his Bankai is going to have, you know, speed-based abilities. And I think even a little bit after fighting him, Byakuya even acknowledged it as a Bankai and stated that's the reason it's so small, to increase his speed. So I just don't think that that's what he meant back then. I didn't really think of it as odd either. That may have something to do with Zangetsu being Juha Box past self. I don't see it. I think that's just... I think that if Ichigo does achieve his true Bankai, or he activates his true Zanpakuto powers, I think his Shikai and Bankai is not going to really change that much. I mean, he might get a different shaped sword or some shit, but his powers might get a boost. He might get some more techniques rather than Getsuga Tensho, but I don't think it's just solely based off of, you know... I just don't think that his Bankai was shaped that way, or that size, for, you know, the reason that pseudo Zangetsu is really a Quincy power. I'm just saying that's my idea. Because those are just a few ideas that I got. Probably rambled a little bit, but I wanted to do a follow-up, so I feel a little bit more better anyway. There's probably a shit ton more about stuff that you guys can come up with. But so yeah, anyway, thanks for watching the video, guys. Thank you very much for sending me all these comments. I got so many comments on this video, so many likes, so many views, so people are still watching me. I'm glad about that. So everyone, thanks for watching. Tekking101 signing out, and see you next time, guys.